The skies over planet Xeric pulsated with the turbulent glow of ion storms, casting eerie shadows across the rugged landscape that sprawled below. It was here, in the furthest reaches of the Andromeda sector, that the Human Federation had decided to make its stand. Below, in the fortified encampments sprinkled amidst jagged rocks and dense fog, anticipation was as thick as the atmosphere. Lieutenant Sarah Knox adjusted her visor, her gaze scanning the horizon. The Xerac terrain was notorious for its unpredictability, much like the alien mercenaries known as the Krelons, who had been hired to fight alongside the Federation's foes. The Krelons were formidable warriors, bred for conflict and respected throughout the galaxy for their ruthless efficiency in battle. However, their latest contract pitted them against an unfamiliar adversary, the Human Special Operations Units. Inside the main command tent, a holographic map flickered with intermittent signals and strategic placements. Captain Miles Wren, the commanding officer of the human contingent, reviewed the latest reconnaissance data. His features were taut with concentration, knowing that the Krelons' decision to withdraw could shift the war's tide. "They've seen something, Sarah," Captain Wren murmured as she approached. "Our latest reports suggest the Krelons refused to advance after encountering our spec ops. We need to understand why." Knox nodded, her mind racing. The spec ops units were Earth's finest, highly trained soldiers equipped with the latest in combat technology and psychic warfare capabilities. Yet it was hard to believe that they could intimidate a species as fearsome as the Krelons into a full retreat. "Could it be a trap?" she speculated, her voice low. Wren considered this. "Possible, but unlikely. Krelons thrive on direct confrontation. If they retreat, it's because they respect, or fear, the opponent's power." Their conversation was cut short by the sudden blare of alarms. The base was on high alert. A scouting drone had returned with visuals. On the screen, images flickered to life. A dozen human soldiers, cloaked in stealth armor, were engaged in what appeared to be a silent ballet of death with a Krelon unit. The footage was grainy, but the outcome unmistakable. The human unit moved with such precision and unpredictability that even the Krelons seemed disoriented, their usual fluidity in battle scrambled. "This is it," Wren said, pointing at the screen. "Our boys use the new phase tech stealth suits, virtually invisible, silent, and the thermal masking almost perfect. Even their psychic screamers can't detect them." Knox watched, fascinated. The phase tech suits represented the pinnacle of human ingenuity, a testament to their refusal to succumb to the superior numbers and brute strength of alien technologies. "And the Krelons can sense that they can't win?" "More than that," Wren replied. "The Krelons respect strength, yes, but they honor the hunt, the challenge. Our technology doesn't just shield our soldiers. It erases them from the senses the Krelons rely on. It's not just that they can't win. They can't engage, can't hunt. That's why they pulled back." As they pondered the implications, a new message blinked on the screen. It was from the Federation Command, and it was direct. "Utilize the advantage. Drive forward. End this." Wren looked at Knox, a grim determination settling over his features. "Prepare the units. We advance at dawn. The Krelons may have stepped back, but this war waits for no one." Knox saluted, turning to leave. As she stepped out into the chill of the Xerac night, her mind was not on the impending battle, but on the broader implications of their new advantage. How long before the enemy adapted? How long before the eerie dance of technology and warfare evolved again? Above, the storms of Xerac growled, as if in warning. The war was far from over, and the human spirit, armed with innovation and... As dawn broke over the jagged horizon of Xerac, the human forces prepared to capitalize on their newfound technological edge. Lieutenant Sarah Knox stood at the forefront, her eyes scanning the deployment lines of her troops. Behind her, the first light of Xerac's twin suns cast long shadows, giving the armored figures an almost spectral appearance. The air crackled with tension, each soldier internalizing the gravity of the command's directive: advance and end this. They were moments away from initiating one of the most significant offensives since the war began. The silence was palpable, interrupted only by the intermittent communications crackling through their headsets. Echo Team, status report. Knox's voice cut through the stillness, authoritative yet calm. Echo in position, Phantom Tech operational, awaiting signal, came the response, clear and concise. Knox turned to Captain Wren, who was coordinating the movements from a mobile command unit. His face was illuminated by the soft glow of tactical displays, his focus absolute as he processed streams of data. Initiate Phase 1, he ordered, his voice a beacon of resolve. As the command was relayed, the first line of soldiers, equipped with the Phase Tech suits, began their silent march toward the enemy lines. The suits' stealth technology made them nearly invisible, blurring their forms into the landscape like mirages. To any observer, it would seem as though the terrain itself was shifting, a deceptive and disconcerting sight. Several kilometers away, a Krelon scout unit detected the faintest of disturbances. The Krelons, towering beings with chitinous armor and multifaceted eyes, were not easily fooled. Their leader, a veteran of countless skirmishes, signaled for caution, his antennae twitching in the charged air. "Enhanced sensors. Something approaches," he hissed, his voice a gravelly whisper that carried weight and experience. The Krelon technicians adjusted their equipment, boosting the sensitivity of their detection arrays. For a moment, there was nothing but the natural chaos of Zerak's winds. Then a technician stiffened, his eyes widening. "Anomalies detected. Patterns suggest..." "No, impossible. Our sensors must be malfunctioning," he stammered, disbelief coloring his tone. The leader growled, unsatisfied with uncertainty. "Prepare for contact. All units, defensive formations." Back at the human front, Knox watched as the first reports of engagement came in. The Krelons had indeed formed up, their movements suggesting confusion and hesitancy. It was exactly what the human commanders had hoped for. "Phase 2, bring up the heavies. Let's show them we're not just shadows," Wren commanded, shifting strategies with practiced ease. Heavy armored vehicles, their cannons primed, rolled forward, their presence a stark contrast to the ethereal stealth troops. As they crested a ridge, they unleashed a barrage of fire. The sudden thunder in the command tent. The air was thick with the electric hum of strategic operations as Captain Wren monitored the unfolding battle. The initial success of the human offensive had given way to a brutal deadlock. Krelons, renowned for their resilience, had adapted quicker than anticipated, deploying countermeasures that blunted the human advance. "Adjust the northern flank. Reroute the drone swarm for a distraction," Wren commanded, his voice crisp over the comm channel. Outside, the terrain of Zerak continued to challenge both sides, its unpredictable weather patterns adding another layer of complexity to the warfare. Lieutenant Knox crouched behind a ridge, observing the shifting lines through her binoculars. The Krelons had erected energy shields, their shimmering surfaces distorting the visual field, making direct hits nearly impossible. She relayed the coordinates back to artillery units, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Focus fire on grid sector 49 Alpha. Break their line," she ordered, marking the Krelons' new shield generators as priority targets. Meanwhile, in a distant orbit around Zerak, a Krelon warship received distress signals from the surface. The ship's commander, a seasoned veteran named Vark, stood before a large tactical display, his deep-set eyes analyzing the transmissions. Vark was not just any Krelon. He was a member of the elite Star Guard, and his strategic acumen was unmatched. "Prepare the Darkwing fighters. It's time we joined the fray," Vark decreed, his voice resonating through the command deck. Within minutes, sleek Krelon fighters, equipped with cloaking technology, began their descent toward Zerak, their entry into the atmosphere a silent, deadly promise. Back on the surface, the sudden appearance of Krelon fighters shifted the dynamics dramatically. Their attacks were precise, targeting the heavy artillery that had been instrumental in the humans' initial successes. With each strike, the balance teetered, pulling the momentum towards the Krelons. Knox felt the ground shake as another human tank was hit, its armor no match for the advanced Krelon weaponry. She grabbed her communicator, urgency lacing her tone. "We need air support now. Sector 3 Echo Bravo is compromised." As human fighter jets scrambled to engage, the sky above Zerak turned into a battlefield of its own. The dogfights were intense, the human pilots pushed to their limits against the agile Krelon Darkwings. Each explosion in the sky was a testament to the ferocity of the encounter. Amidst the aerial chaos, Nox and her squad pushed forward, using the distraction to advance. Their objective was clear: disable the Krylon shield generators. Each step was perilous, the ground littered with debris and craters, but the urgency of their mission drove them on. They reached the first generator, and Nox signaled to her demolition expert, a young sergeant named Cole. "Plant the charges. We have 3 minutes tops before they regroup." Cole worked with practiced speed, setting up the explosive devices around the generator. The seconds ticked by, each one heavy with risk. Finally, with the charges set, Nox gave the order to retreat. "Fall back! Detonate in 5!" The explosion was monumental, a brilliant flash followed by a shockwave that tore through the Krylon defenses. The shield flickered and died, leaving the enemy exposed. As the debris settled from the destroyed shield generator, Captain Wren assessed the shifting lines from his mobile command center. The loss of the Krylon shields had given the humans a fleeting advantage, but he knew it wouldn't last long. He needed a plan that could leverage this moment before the Krylons could regroup and retaliate. "Reconfigure the satellite arrays. I want real-time feeds on all Krylon movements. We're not just going to push, we're going to outmaneuver them," Wren declared, tapping commands into his console. The technicians worked feverishly, rerouting data and enhancing surveillance capabilities. Lieutenant Nox regrouped with her squad, their faces smeared with grime and sweat, but eyes burning with determination. "Listen up, team. Wren's pushing for a full-scale maneuver. We're not just holding ground, we're taking it. Echo team, you're on point. Move out in 2 mics." The ground troops mobilized, their movements synchronized and silent. They advanced through the battered landscape, using destroyed Krylon machinery and natural rock formations as cover. Every soldier knew the gravity of the mission. The tides could turn at any moment, and every second they held the advantage was crucial. Meanwhile, in the upper atmosphere, Vark's Darkwing fighters regrouped, their sleek forms cutting through the clouds like dark omens. Vark had anticipated the human push and prepared his own counter-strategy. "Signal the reserves. Initiate Protocol Shadowfall. It's time they learned what it means to fight in the dark," Vark commanded, his voice echoing ominously through the warship. Below, Krylon reinforcements prepared for deployment, their gear optimized for night combat. As night fell on Zirak, the battlefield transformed. The darkness was not a blanket, but a tool, and both sides sought to wield it. The humans activated their night vision gear, the world turning into shades of green and black. The Krylons, with their natural infrared vision, moved like wraiths, their presence more sensed than seen. Nox led her squad through a narrow pass, the rocky walls a whisper away from their armored suits. Every step was measured, every breath controlled. Suddenly a flare burst overhead, casting stark light over the area and throwing sharp, elongated shadows across the terrain. "Contact!" shouted a voice from the front. Instantly, the squad was in motion, finding defensive positions as shapes emerged from the darkness. A firefight erupted, the sound of gunfire and energy weapons reverberating off the stone. Nox peered through her scope, her fingers steady on the trigger. Each shot was a calculation, each movement a calculated risk. Around her, her squad returned fire, disciplined and precise. Above, Wren watched the engagement from his screens, his heart pounding with the rapid pace of battle. "Support team, move to flank position Bravo. Pin them down." On his command, a second human squad moved in, circling to the side of the Krylons and catching them in a lethal crossfire. The Krylons, realizing their vulnerability, began to withdraw, pulling back into the deeper shadows. "Push forward," Nox commanded, seizing the moment. Her squad advanced, keeping the retreating Krylons within their sights. But as they moved, the ground beneath them shuddered, a deep rumbling that grew in intensity. Without warning, the earth split, a new tactic unleashed by the Krylons. Geothermal charges buried deep within the planet's crust detonated, creating a seismic shift that threw the human forces off balance. Nox stumbled, catching herself on a rock. Around her, the world seemed to spin out of control. "Regroup!" she yelled, her voice barely audible over the din of the shifting earth. The Krylons used the chaos to their advantage, disappearing into the night, their retreat as strategic as their attack. Nox knew this was no defeat. The tremors from the geothermal charges gradually subsided, leaving an eerie silence hanging over the battlefield. The disrupted Earth created new barriers and challenges, but also opportunities. Lieutenant Knox, recovering her footing, scanned the area with a critical eye, her mind racing through tactical adjustments. "Echo Team, assess damage and consolidate our position. We can't afford to be caught off guard again," she commanded, her voice carrying clearly in the post-tremor stillness. Her squad moved efficiently, checking for injuries and recalibrating their equipment. Despite the sudden geological assault, their morale remained unbroken. If anything, the Kreelan's surprise tactic had only hardened their resolve. Meanwhile, Captain Wren coordinated with the other units, his display screens lit with data streams and live feeds from the drones overhead. "All units, maintain a tight formation. We expect the Kreelans to counterattack. Stay sharp," he instructed, aware that the enemy was likely regrouping for a more substantial strike. In the depths of Zerak's shadowy landscape, the Kreelans were indeed rallying. Vark observed the humans' resilience with a grudging respect. Under his command, his troops prepared for a renewed assault, their movements hidden beneath the cloak of night. "Deploy the Phantom units," Vark ordered, referring to a specialized squad known for their stealth and ferocity. "Use the new terrain to our advantage." The Kreelan Phantom units, equipped with adaptive camouflage, moved like ghosts across the battlefield, their presence nearly undetectable until they were upon their foes. As the human forces shored up their defenses, a sudden flurry of sensor alerts warned of incoming threats. Knox, ever vigilant, caught the slight distortions in the air, a telltale sign of the approaching Phantom units. "Ambush! Defensive positions!" she barked, and her squad responded instantly, their training kicking in as they formed a protective circle. The night erupted into chaos as the Phantoms struck, their attacks almost spectral in their swiftness. The battle was fierce, with both sides exchanging fire at close quarters. Knox found herself at the heart of the conflict, her combat skills pushed to their limits as she parried and struck with lethal precision. Her team covered her, their coordinated volleys keeping the Kreelans at bay. Above the fray, Captain Wren watched anxiously, his hands clenched. "Support is en route, Knox. Hold on," he communicated through the comlink, his voice a lifeline amid the storm of combat. Just as the Kreelans seemed to gain the upper hand, the sound of heavy thrusters announced the arrival of human reinforcements. Armored exosuits, piloted by elite soldiers, descended from transport crafts, their heavy weapons turning the tide. The ground shook under the weight of their landing, and their firepower was devastating. The Kreelans, realizing the shift in battlefield dynamics, began a tactical withdrawal, disappearing into the thickets and rock formations. Vark, monitoring the retreat, was already planning their next move. "Regroup at Rally Point Sigma. Prepare for the next phase," he commanded, his voice calm despite the setback. With the immediate threat diminished, Knox regrouped with her squad, assessing their status and tending to the wounded. The night was far from over, and she knew that each lull was merely a prelude to further strife. "Stay alert," she warned her team. "They're adapting just as fast as we are. This isn't over." As the echoes of battle faded into the night, both human and Kreelan forces prepared for the next encounter, each side driven by a relentless pursuit of victory. The war on Zerak was a testament to the complex. As the night deepened on Zerak, the landscape became a living shadow, every rock and crevice concealing potential danger. Lieutenant Knox and her squad fortified their position, using the broken terrain to their advantage. Her eyes scanned the darkness, a relentless vigilance in her gaze. The brief respite had given them time to reset, but it also allowed the Kreelans to vanish into the night, their next move uncertain. Captain Wren, meanwhile, was in constant communication with Federation Command, strategizing their next steps. "We've pushed them back, but we haven't won yet. They're regrouping faster than we anticipated," he reported, his voice edged with frustration. "Federation Command acknowledges, Wren. Maintain pressure. Reinforcements are en route. Hold your position." The reply came, crisp and authoritative over the comlink. In the eerie silence that followed the storm of battle, Vark convened with his commanders in a concealed encampment. His tactical map glowed with a web of possible maneuvers and counterattacks. The humans are persistent, Vark mused aloud, his finger tracing potential attack routes. But they rely too heavily on their technology. Prepare for a full-scale assault at dawn. We'll use the ravines to our advantage. As the first hints of light tinted the horizon, the Krelans launched their assault, emerging like phantoms from the planet's fissures and valleys. Their attack was silent but deadly, coordinated with precision honed by cycles of warfare. Nox's squad was jolted from their watchfulness by the sudden onslaught. Energy blasts cut through the morning mist, each one a deadly streak of light. "Positions now! Return fire!" Nox commanded, her voice a beacon in the tumult. Her squad, though caught off guard, responded with practiced efficiency, their counterfire disciplined and targeted. The battle raged fiercely as the sun rose, casting long shadows over the chaotic scene. The human reinforcements arrived just as the Krelans seemed to be overwhelming the forward positions. Dropships descended, deploying additional troops in heavy armor. The tide of battle shifted once more, the reinforced human lines pushing back against the Krelan advance. Amidst the firefight, Nox maneuvered her squad through the melee, targeting strategic points. Her aim was not just to repel the Krelans, but to cripple their ability to fight. "Target their command units! Break their coordination!" she shouted over the roar of combat. The humans' focus on disrupting Krelan leadership proved effective. Without their command structure intact, the Krelan units became disorganized, their movements erratic. Vark, witnessing the disarray among his troops, realized the need for a strategic retreat to preserve his forces for another day. "Fall back! Regroup at secondary positions," Vark ordered, his voice resolute even in withdrawal. The Krelans retreated with as much precision as they had attacked, vanishing once more into the rugged landscapes of Zerak. As the dust settled, Captain Wren and Lieutenant Nox surveyed the battlefield, the early light revealing the cost of the night's conflict. "We held them off for now," Wren said, his face grim but relieved. "But this is far from over. They'll regroup and so will we." Nox nodded, her gaze lingering on the horizon where the Krelans had disappeared. "They're learning, adapting, but so are we. Every engagement teaches us more about ourselves and them. We'll be ready." As the sun climbed higher, casting its harsh light on the scarred terrain, the human troops began fortifying their positions, preparing for the next